Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the wonderful youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter, the man who doesn't look at his phone very often. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm not too good. I have a cold, which I rarely get sick. So when I have a cold, it just feels that much worse because I'm basically never sick. So if my voice sounds a little off, a little weird, if I'm not bringing all the energy in the world, that's why. But I will try to keep things lively. So yeah, I for whatever reason, and I think I looked at my phone and I saw I had texts and I thought that I checked them all, but apparently not, because 30 minutes later I'm like, oh my God, Troy texted me and he's ready to go on this podcast, and it's 30 minutes later. So I felt bad for that, obviously. But
it's all good. You know, when you get to my age, you roll with the punches. People ignore you all the time. It's just the way the world works. That's what you got to look forward to.
There was no ignoring, Troy. Trust me.
Yeah, I know. I was excited. I was excited about this show, and I'm real excited this week. Like, I'm really excited this week to do all of our shows, and I'm going to share with our Go Big audience because we have a very good following on Go Big or Go Home, and thank you to all the listeners. Appreciate everyone. Talk to Coach Goodpaster, the founder of The Grueling Truth, Kevin, and, you know, as I shared with you, as I shared on all our social media sites, The Grueling Truth has agreed to be the home of our archived Saturday show, Talking Sports with the Youngster and Old Man. And I'm excited about that. I mean, we do 4 radio stations, 2 different markets, Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I'm excited to have The Grueling Truth be the place that archives our show after it plays on Saturday morning on those 4 great stations. So I'm excited about that, youngster. I mean, I love that show. I want more people to listen to that show. We do all sports on that show. We don't do a lot of college, actually. It's more professional. But I'm excited about that. But I'll turn it back over to you. We'll get right into it. Big Ten football this weekend, Kevin. A lot of action, a lot of conference games. But like every week, going to go through the AP Top 25, recap last week's games. I'm almost to the point, though, Kevin, where it is almost laughable now that we have not won our lock of the week, and it's like not even close. Like our locks aren't even close.
No.
We'll get into that though when we get to see if we're going to lock a game in this week. But take it away. Let's go over the AP Top 25, my friend.
Well, yeah, I like starting with little notes, and I think that this is a good place to do it because I'm sure that some people just want to find out what the lock of the week is and laugh at us when we lose, basically because that's what has happened this entire season so far. I believe I skipped out on week 1 where I wasn't confident in anything, so we didn't have anything going. Week 2, we lost. Week 3, we lost. Week 4, we had Minnesota +3 going to Maryland. We just thought Minnesota was the more consistent team, and Maryland looked like crap the week before. And that's typically what happens in football is a team looks like crap one week, and then all of a sudden they just come out of nowhere and blitz the other team. That's exactly what happened with Maryland. It's kind of like the Buffalo Bills.
Or it could just be Minnesota. You remember what happened last year when I propped Minnesota?
Yeah.
They went into the pooer. They literally went right down the drain. I'm thinking there's a conspiracy with Minnesota. You know, I am a Packer fan. I can't cheer for the Minnesota Vikings, not even with DraftKings. I had a bunch of Vikings in my DraftKings this weekend, and what happened there?
Yeah.
What happened this weekend in the NFL with the Vikings?
Right.
I think there is a conspiracy against the old man when it comes to Minnesota teams. That's where I'm going to leave it. That's all I'm going to say. Every time I try to say something nice about Minnesota, play Vikings, no, they all poo the bed. So maybe I don't support Minnesota teams anymore. How about that, youngster?
That's fine. That's fine. I've got nothing more to say about that game. If we have a lock of the week this week, folks, which we will put in our bio at thegruelingtruth.net if that's how you're listening to this, then go against us because we're 0-3 this year. Last year we were a perfect, I think it was 5-0. But this year, just go against whatever we decide to lock. So,
because the side note is it's not even close.
Right.
Like, we took Minnesota +3. Are you there, youngster?
Yes. I thought your voice cut out for me anyway. Your voice cut out for me.
I am on my road home on the back way. I usually share that before the show, so you know that you may lose me.
Yes.
If you,
Minnesota,
if you would have looked at your phone, we'd be done by now.
It's very true. Minnesota lost by 29 points. If I only lost Troy, you heard him, so this may be redundant. But yeah, Minnesota lost by 29. We were not even close. The week before, we picked Rutgers to basically beat Kansas, and they lost by like 30. I don't even remember what we did week 2, but that was also a joke. Northwestern Duke, and Duke beat them by like 14 points. It wasn't even close. So yeah, again, whatever we locked in.
Duke crawled into the top 25, youngster. Maybe
Duke
they're not
and
so
Kentucky.
bad after.
Troy, Duke and Kentucky football. I think I retweeted this stat that I saw. It's the first time Duke and Kentucky have been in the same AP top 25 in, I think it was since the 50s. I think it's the last time it happened. There was like 580 occurrences where Duke and Kentucky basketball were in the same AP top 25 since then. So there's been like 580 times that's happened in basketball before that happened again in football once.
Yeah, you had to look twice. If you were looking at it, you might think it's the AP preseason top 25 basketball, seeing Duke and Kentucky in there.
Yeah.
But let's move on, my friend, and you may lose me. And so if I start cracking up, just interrupt me and say you're cracking up or I can't hear you. Because my back road route, I go in hills and valleys in western PA, and sometimes the reception is not too well.
Yeah, all good. I also want to mention this very quickly as well. Troy, you locked Ohio State minus 35.5 against Tulane. That was correct. Ohio State won by more than 35.5. I also locked Michigan State to beat Indiana on the road by more than 4.5. They did that. They won by 14. Individually, we did just fine. If you took our combined, what we hammered down as the go big or go home lock of the week, then you lost. But again, just go against us. You'll win. Moving on to the AP Top 25. Alabama number 1, Georgia number 2, Clemson number 3, Ohio State still in there at 4, LSU still at 5. Actually, LSU and Oklahoma switched 5 and 6. Stanford beat Oregon, didn't move up whatsoever. They're at 7. Notre Dame survived a little bit of a scare. They're at 8. Penn State moved up to 9. They switched spots with Auburn for whatever reason, whatever Auburn did last week. I have no idea. So Auburn's 10. But so Ohio State 4, Penn State 9. And then Michigan, Wisconsin moved up a little bit. Michigan actually jumped Wisconsin this week. Michigan's 14. Wisconsin's 15. I don't really understand how Michigan, to some voters, certainly just passed Wisconsin over this past week because Michigan throttled Nebraska, who hasn't won a game, and Wisconsin went into Kinnick Stadium at night and beat Iowa. That's more impressive than crushing Nebraska at this point. But who cares? Whatever. Who am I? Michigan's 14, Wisconsin 15, and then Michigan State also moved up to 21. And to close it, the others receiving votes, Iowa is now 7th in others receiving votes instead of 1st. They were basically the number 26 team in the country last week. Now they're like 32. Maryland's also in there, and so is Buffalo, Troy, which is not 10 school, but Buffalo is 4-0, others receiving votes. They could potentially next week. I have no idea what happens, obviously, this upcoming weekend, but Buffalo could be a top 25 team. And, yeah, obviously we understand where Buffalo football, kind of the head of Buffalo football, where he comes from. But anyway, again, Ohio State 4, Penn State 9, Michigan 14, Wisconsin 15, Michigan State 21. Michigan, Wisconsin look good, not fantastic. And same with Michigan.
I'll tell you why Michigan jumped Wisconsin, Kevin, is because they throttled. They put up points. That's all the voters look at.
Maybe.
I mean, I actually tweeted this out, and I'll say it before we get – maybe we can just get into that game if you want to parlay off this. I've been busting Hornibrook's chops all year, all last year. He finally stepped up at the end of the game and made a play. And I know that a friend of the show, Evan Witalison, was out there, talked about his inconsistency, which we talk about, and that is, he's inconsistent. But at the end of games, when a big play is needed, I can't remember a time where he stepped up and made a play when it really, really mattered. Like, that was it. If he didn't make that play, Wisconsin loses that game.
Right.
And it was nice as a fan to see him step up and make that play. Now, I don't think he can do it game in and game out, but it was nice to see that. That was perfect. Even the announcers are like, perfect pass. He looked calm in the pocket, threaded the needle, bingo. And he's shown that he can do it at times. He's just a very inconsistent quarterback, but I've not seen him step up in the last 5 minutes of a game when it really mattered to help Wisconsin get over the top. That's what they would need for 60 minutes to win a national championship. And you don't get it with Hornibrook. But I'm going to give him credit. That throw was amazing. He did well. And Wisconsin won in a tough environment. Now, on the flip side, you wonder why Michigan's ahead of Wisconsin? Because they put up a ton of points. That's it, Kevin. You know how I feel about these polls. Those voters have no clue that they probably, Wisconsin at Iowa, they won a close one. Okay? Well, Michigan just throttled. They're way better. Okay, well, not necessarily. It was Nebraska. Nebraska, I don't even want to call them a hot mess, Kevin. They're just in a rebuild mode. Frost is trying to get his guys, his system. We talked about this on a prior show, that he may not have the players he needs currently on that roster to do what he wants to do, not from top to bottom. So he needs to get his guys in there. And, did I think they would be this bad? No, I thought they'd be a little bit better, but it is what it is. And, first year, maybe he gets a little free pass. He's trying to implement a system. It is what it is. Yeah. But that Wisconsin game, Kevin, to me, it wouldn't be right if I didn't give Hornibrook credit. Like I said, I've been busting him for a year and a half.
Yep.
And this game, what was it, 17 out of 22, I think, was his final stat line?
I believe so.
He was accurate, made some good reads, did some good things. I wouldn't say he played phenomenal, but he played very well. And I want to give credit where credit is due, because I may be his harshest critic in the world. So good job, Alex Hornibrook. You helped the team that I cheer for win a football game against a solid Iowa team, Kevin. And it was at Kinnick Stadium, which is a very tough place to play. Any team going in there, doesn't matter what the record is, Iowa's going to give you a tough game when they're at home. So what were your thoughts on that Wisconsin-Iowa game?
Yeah, that's basically the note that I had from Hornibrook. It's like, he looked good, just like some games he does. Still inconsistent. To me, he's a B- quarterback at best, because you just can't trust him to do it every single week. When the game's on the line, like you mentioned, I don't know the last time that happened, if that's ever happened for Wisconsin, where they needed him the last 5 minutes of a game and he delivered. I don't remember that happening. Maybe
I don't mean to interrupt, youngster, and I do it a lot, I know, and you probably get sick of it. But I had to throw this out, because people, when I make that comment, they'll say, well, he shredded Miami last year. That shows how good he is. That's not the same, and I want people to realize what I'm saying here, and you can elaborate. I'm going to just say what I mean. You can elaborate, because you're so eloquent with your words. Yes, he played well against Miami across the game, but in a tight game, when the game is on the line, when a play or a first down needs to be made, or a touchdown like Iowa, I haven't seen Hornibrook step to the plate and be the man. You started going down the road. He's had good games, but they were also playing with a lead. They were front running. Waiting for Hornibrook to consistently be the man when the chips are against the Badgers and they need the quarterback to make a play. Hornibrook has not done it. He did it in Iowa, and it was nice to see. So I wanted to throw that out there, because he has had very good games, but he has just not stepped to the plate week in and week out when they needed a play.
Yep, completely agreed. Last week, against BYU, if he has one more long, nice, solid drive in the clutch. There you go. Wisconsin wins the game. Instead, they have to settle for a field goal. They miss it. Game's over. He did not step up. That's just last week. So, again, it's inconsistent. It's like Cam Newton throwing the football. It's like, oh, my God, coming out off of this past weekend, Cam Newton had this great game, and it's like, oh, gee, see, there's the Cam that, we think he can be. It's like, yeah, he can be that, just not week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. He had a good, I think it was like 11-game stretch during his MVP year. And then he went into the playoffs with that really good Carolina team, got to the Super Bowl. He had that one really good stretch. Outside of that, he's been just kind of this inconsistent quarterback. Very talented, but is not completely accurate with the football every single throw. He's not. And not to compare Hornibrook to Cam Newton, but it's the same idea that they're inconsistent. They just are. So that's what I took from the game. Hornibrook looked good, just like he has in the past. But yes, you're right. He did deliver when they needed him to. That's hopeful if you're a Wisconsin fan, at least. Jonathan Taylor, 25 carries, 113 yards. Nothing too special. Didn't completely control the game, obviously. Looking at the final score, 28-17, isn't indicative of what actually happened. It was really 21-17. Iowa was looking to get the ball back. They completely packed the line with like 9 guys to stop the run. It didn't happen. The Wisconsin back, basically fled to the end zone to end the game. But very close game overall. Iowa was able to run the ball as far as yards per carry. Both their backs averaged over 5 yards a carry. They only scored 17 points. The huge thing to me, though, really, Wisconsin forced 3 turnovers. Iowa forced 0. I mean, that's a kick for you. Those are my overall thoughts. I still think Wisconsin's a really good team. Hornibrook, if he delivers in the clutch, then the sky's the limit. But it's just a matter of consistency. For me, Illinois, Penn State last week was on a Friday.
Can I throw something out here, Kevin? And this is totally I know we're trying to keep this one a little shorter. That last turnover, did you happen to see the last interception?
I did not. No.
Okay, so this is not a topic we're going to talk about today, but I want you to make a mental note. So when we get to kind of some downtime or we need a topic to talk about, I want to talk about fundamentals of wide receivers, not only in college but in the NFL, because I saw it yesterday in the NFL too. The guy from Iowa, when I watched that replay, and maybe I'm just an old guy. I didn't play any high school football. I was a soccer guy, but I played up to ninth grade. And I remember when I was younger in pass catching drills, I was always taught to make a W and catch the ball with 2 hands. Yeah. Has that changed over time, Kevin? Because
not to my knowledge.
That interception from the Iowa guy, 1 hand went up to try and catch the ball. And I watched the NFL yesterday, and a lot of 1 hands going up. I was always taught you make a W, go up with 2 hands to catch the ball at the point. Maybe I'm just totally off in left field, or I'm so old that is a far gone conclusion that's not how you catch anymore. Am I wrong?
No. At least he gave 1 hand and tried to catch it with 1 hand, because there's a ton of guys, even in the NFL, that catch it with 0 hands. I mean, they try to basically make a little bread basket, have the ball pin against their chest, and catch it with their chest, catch it with their body. And then it bounces off of them, it deflects off, it results in an interception sometimes. Catch the ball with your hands.
I just had to laugh, too, because the announcer's like, well, I guess that ball went in too hot. No, it went in. If he would have put both hands up, he might have caught it.
Right.
I don't think it came in too hot. I mean, whatever. I just wanted to throw that out there because I saw it on Saturday night, and it was no big deal. And then I was watching NFL football yesterday, and it was amazing to me how many professionals go up with 1 hand and the ball flies off of their hand. I mean, does everybody want to make these spectacular one-handed catches? I know the grip on some of these receivers, their hands are about as big as my head, and they probably can just catch it one-handed. But what happened to fundamentals?
Right.
I mean, literally, I'm 5'8", and I think I can catch the ball pretty good. I don't know. Let's move on. You're moving on to Illinois. Go ahead.
Yeah, Friday night, Illinois hosted Penn State. Penn State was up 28-24 going into the fourth quarter. It's like, oh my God, what's going on here? And then Penn State scores 35 points in the fourth quarter. They win 63-24. Miles Sanders had, I think it was 200 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Penn State's very talented. They're going to have their ups and downs. They're going to look like crap against Illinois for 3 quarters, and then they're just going to blow them out because they've got 5-star recruits everywhere. That was the perfect game for Penn State to sum up what Penn State is. 28-24 after 3 quarters against Illinois. That displayed their youth completely, and then the talent took over, and it's like, here's 35 points in 1 quarter. That was perfect to me to sum up what Penn State is. And Penn State hosts Ohio State now, and maybe Penn State was looking ahead. Maybe it took them 3 quarters basically to get it through their minds like, oh, my God, we really have to get going here if we want to win this football game. I don't know. But it was just funny how that game played out to me because that's exactly what Penn State is, in my mind anyway. You have anything on that, Troy?
No, just like we always do. You can just keep going, and I'll interrupt you like I'm very good at. If I have anything to add, I may just put out a. How about I do this? If I have nothing to add, I'll just do this. Go Nittany Lions! Good job, Nittany Lions. There we go. Yeah. That's all I got to add about that game.
All right. Michigan hosts Nebraska. Michigan won the game 56-10. Adrian Martinez played for Nebraska, the freshman quarterback, so that was cool. But Michigan's defense is just their D-line against Nebraska's O-line, Michigan's O-line against Nebraska's D-line. It was just a joke at the line of scrimmage. And so what can you do when you're getting demolished up front on both sides of the ball? You can't do anything. And after the game, Scott Frost said, our team's not ready for a team like that. Like, he just flat out said it. We're not ready to play against a team like that has 5 stars and 4 stars up and down the roster. We're just not. He didn't talk about recruiting, stars, but said that we're not ready to play a team like that. And that's fine. I mean, you can't be pissed at Scott Frost in Nebraska for losing a game like that. Because it's just the team is not where it's going to be even 1 year from now. It's going to be completely different. Not necessarily at the quarterback position, but the linemen will look different. The skill position players will look different. The defense will certainly look different. It's going to be, it's like you said, Troy, earlier to start the show, basically, it's a rebuild. I mean, it's going to look completely different. Scott Frost at UCF went under 500, his first year, because it's not his guys. None of these guys are his. So it is what it is.
I'll tell you what, I was impressed with him just manning up.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to try and make his guys feel good. I mean, they literally got throttled.
Right.
And he just flat out said, we're not ready.
Yeah. And when you're an athlete, Troy, I think you know that. Like in soccer, I'm sure you've lost soccer games 6-0. I'm sure you've lost soccer games 8-1. I've lost basketball games, 62-25. I mean, you just know you're inferior. That's okay. It is what it is.
I did it as a coach. You know the story about when I transformed the school from D3 to D2. And
right.
you know as a coach. And you're just, like I said, and I had shared this story, so those that listen in every week, sorry to give another story that you've probably already heard. But, Kevin, you heard me talk about my goal with that team. I pretty much knew we weren't probably going to win many games, but it's not like you're going to go in to not try to win. But as a coach, you got to be real. Like, we're playing Lewis University. They're a top 5 school in the country. So what do we want to accomplish? Yeah, we want to win the game. Don't get me wrong. And we're going to prepare, and we're going to try to win. But as a coach, I've got grown men that are 22 and 23 playing for a top 5 school in the country against my 18 and 19-year-old guys, some of who were recruited to play in D3, not D2.
Right.
What are my realistic chances of beating Lewis University? Not very good. But at the end of that game, and this is probably, of all the games that we played that year, this is the one that I was most proud of these guys. We ended up losing 5-2. And 5 goals against Lewis, they averaged, I think, like 3.5 goals a game. At the end of the year, Kevin, they won the D2 National Championship. We were the only school to score over a goal on them. That is an accomplishment. So to me, we did some good things. But we weren't ready. We weren't ready to step on the field with the UW Parkside. We played St. Louis, Missouri. We were not ready by any means. But we had to go play. And I'll tell you, I really admire Scott Frost for just coming out and saying it and not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes or, brush anything under the rug. He just manned up and said, we're not ready.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah, I completely agreed. It's 100% transparency. It's not like, the offensive line just had a little off day. Our guys could have competed and done a few things, and turned some balls the other way, and, boom, we could have been right in the game. No, we're just not good enough for that team right now. And you're not. It is what it is. But anyway, I'll move on. Purdue hosted Boston College. Boston College was the number 23 team in the country. Purdue was unranked, and Purdue did not have a win up to this point. And Purdue won the game 30-13. David Blau was the only quarterback to play for Purdue for the second straight week after throwing for, I think it was like 575
What was that, Kevin?
yards. What
did you just say about the quarterback?
Yeah, he threw last week. He was the only quarterback to play for Purdue.
Wow.
And they won the game.
Huh.
They won the game. After throwing for 575 yards a week ago, he came back against a top 25 team, 21-28, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns. 30-13 win.
Amazing.
Exactly. I put in my notes, literally this is what I typed out, Troy. Gee, what do you know? You play one quarterback who gets all the reps and build a little chemistry with these guys and understand that he's going to be playing the whole game and not just get yanked randomly. And you can get into a little bit of a rhythm. I don't know.
Good job, Purdue.
Yeah. Okay. Rondale Moore, want to mention this too, freshman wide receiver. He's looked really good. Name to remember for not just the rest of this year, but the next couple of years. Again, freshman wide receiver makes a lot of plays. He already has in his first 4 games now. Moving on, Rutgers hosted Buffalo. You would assume that Rutgers at home against Buffalo, a MAC team, Rutgers could maybe hang in the game. Well, you're absolutely wrong. They lost 42-13. I mean, that's after losing to Kansas by 30, 40 points the week before. This is the game we should have locked, Kevin, because we were both high on Buffalo. We have ties to Buffalo due to the fact that the coach of Buffalo coached at our alma mater, UW-Whitewater. Buffalo's a solid team. Coach Leopold. He's got that team, and I believe Buffalo's undefeated right now, Kevin. I think they're 3-0. 4-0. 4-0 and they're receiving votes. Yeah.
So, and we knew that it would be just a matter of time before he started recruiting guys for his system and started getting that team to play at a very good level. And now he can compete with, the lower end of the Big Ten. But you think where Buffalo's at, that's an accomplishment. 4-0, 2 more wins and they're going to be bowl eligible. Don't get me started on that, but, that'll come out, 2 more wins. He'll be bowl eligible, which is a great step for where that team was.
Yep.
But you look at Rutgers, Kevin, and it just goes to prove. We thought they'd maybe do a little more, but man, I know Buffalo's good, but for Rutgers to not even be in the game, what was Buffalo up with 24-0 or something like that? I saw they were up big early.
Yeah, halftime it was 35-6.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Rutgers, I'm going back to the drawing board. But again, isn't Rutgers on a 6-year plan?
That's what I was going to mention. This is my last note for it. Artur Sikowski, the freshman quarterback, started the game, then got benched again, just like he did against Kansas. I don't know what their situation is going to be at quarterback going forward. But yeah, the coach last week said this is a rebuild that could take 4, 5, 6 years. I don't know if you're going to have 6 years. especially when you're losing to Kansas by 40, Buffalo by 30. I don't know if you're going to have 6 years. I'm not going to say he should be fired, but I don't think he has 6 years. This is
no, and just in contrast, Coach Leopold's been at Buffalo. This is his 3rd year, I believe, right, Kevin?
Either 3rd or 4th, yeah. So it's comparable, for sure.
So the reason I brought it up is that in 3 or 4 years, he's got a Buffalo team, 4-0, competing with lower-end Big Ten teams. And when you're talking about Buffalo, it's not a Big Ten team, but they're 4-0. So his rebuild took 4 years. He's got his guys in place.
Yep.
And you look at it, this 6-year thing that comes out still makes me laugh. But we can move on.
Maryland hosted Minnesota. I have nothing really to say on this game other than Maryland has more talent than Minnesota. They're just inconsistent. I don't feel any different than I did a week ago. But Maryland displayed their talent that Minnesota just doesn't quite have. Minnesota's also without their top running back for the year. Maryland's freshman quarterback decided to play well this week. Last week he didn't. So that's freshman
all I'm going to say about this game is I'm sorry to all the Minnesota Gopher fans. I truly apologize. Because every time I get high on your Gophers, they poo the bed. So I may just become mute when we start talking about previewing games when it comes to Minnesota. I really believe that. And I do apologize to all Minnesota fans. Because remember last year, Kevin, and I've brought this up a number of times because it still sticks with me. Because the Minnesota teams that I know, and I know this wasn't a home game, but this is where my thought process is coming from. They always used to be a tough game at home. And last year they played pretty bad at home after I said that. And then this year, you were high on them from week 1. I wasn't so high. I said, prove it to me, prove it to me. My needle was moving over as they kept playing because they looked very consistent. So I gave in last week.
Yeah, I convinced you. Yeah.
I drank the Kool-Aid. I drank the Minnesota Gopher Kool-Aid.
Yep.
And boom, down the drain it went. So I do apologize to all Minnesota Golden Gopher fans. I'm sorry. Carry on.
You were hesitant for a good reason, Troy. We've got 3 more games to recap. Actually, 2 more. Yes, 2 more. We already did Iowa, Wisconsin. 2 more games to recap. The first one's going to be very quick. And then there's only 5 games to preview for week 5. In the Big Ten, there are a lot of teams with byes. I think there's, let me see here, 1, 2, there's 5 teams with bye weeks in this week. So not many games to preview. Moving on quickly, Ohio State, Tulane. Ohio State won 49-6. Only thing I have, Dwayne Haskins, 21-24, 304 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, people are talking about him being a legitimate NFL quarterback when it's all said and done for a reason. When you play Tulane, when you play Rutgers, you dominate. He has dominated. When you play TCU, you'll look good. He did. He is the real deal. He is the best. He is the best, by far the best looking quarterback Ohio State's had since Troy Smith, and he's probably better than Troy Smith, realistically. Those offenses were, you could truly push defenses down the field. Part of that was you had 2 NFL wide receivers on the outside as well with Troy Smith. But this Haskins is a legitimate NFL prospect, and he's a sophomore. That's what's taken this team to another level, in my opinion.
Good job, Buckeyes.
There we go. Indiana hosted Michigan State. I was good on this one. Troy, you were also good on Ohio State covering the spread there. They crushed Tulane more than the spread even thought they would. Indiana, Michigan State. Again, I thought Michigan State would go on the road, win by over a touchdown. The line was only like 4.5. I figured Michigan State would go in there and finally put things together after a bye week. They did. They won 35-21. Again, they're more talented than Indiana. They just looked like crap the first 2 weeks of the season for whatever reason. Indiana, I'll say this about Indiana. The quarterback, Peyton Ramsey, who we've been talking about a little bit week to week, he did okay in this game. They still did score 21 points. Statistically, he did fine. The freshman running back, however, Stevie Scott, we mentioned, like the first running back in program history to have 100-yard games as a freshman. 11 carries, 18 yards in this game. Sometimes that's what Michigan State's defense does to you, is they completely bottle up your running game. That's what happened here. So Michigan State just kind of flexed their muscles like they should have been the first couple weeks. They just didn't. So that's all I got on week 4.
Yeah, I just want to say this about Michigan State. Maybe this is the game that kind of turns it around, because this is a team after last year where the expectations were a lot higher. I mean, you look at last year, the expectations were nowhere near where they ended up. And now you come into this year returning some guys, and you're thinking, wow, well, we should be competitive. We, at least, be up in that upper, that 8, 9, 10 win area again, and they didn't play like it. I mean, they were preseason, look how high they were ranked. I mean, a lot of people had high expectations for them, and this game maybe is the turning point. And you and I, we're not afraid to say we like D'Antonio as a coach. I think he's a good coach. He's meant for college. He's a good college football coach. And maybe this is the game they needed against a lesser opponent. Go out, do some things, get the win. Now you can come back, you can regroup, and now you can look forward to the rest of your season. Because it doesn't pay to look at, what could have been if we, you can't do that. College football is too fast. Limited amount of games, you got to worry about the next one up, and that's it. You can't change what's happened in the past. Like Wisconsin fans, like I'm one. The BYU game is done, over. All I can look for now is that they take care of business in their division to get a chance to go to the championship game again. They're not going to the BCS Bowl. They're not going to the playoff. But maybe they can get to the Big Ten championship game again. But they need to do it 1 week at a time and take care of business. And maybe that's now what Michigan State can do. Turn the corner, maybe get their confidence level back, and look at, like, hey, we screwed up early, but let's just win games now. That's all I got.
Yeah, and Wisconsin's the complete front runner now. Now that they've got the tiebreaker with Iowa, Nebraska's not interesting on that side. Northwestern's not really interesting on that side. Wisconsin, to me, they sealed it. They for sure 100% basically sealed it. There's nothing, not even a Hornibrook injury.
Don't do the 100%, youngster. We had one of our listeners on Facebook say we guaranteed something, and you know what? He was right. I'm going to stop guaranteeing stuff.
I'm guaranteeing. I'm guaranteeing.
Whoa,
it's 100%.
It. Stepping out.
Jonathan Taylor. If Jonathan Taylor got an injury for the rest of the year, hopefully he doesn't, obviously. He gets injured for the rest of the year during this bye week that Wisconsin has coming up. Okay, next guy up. They're still going to run the football pretty well. Hornibrook's still going to be decent. The defense is still going to be solid. You have to lose 2 more games than Iowa does the rest of the way. It's not happening. It's not.
All right, youngster. All right.
It's not. Wisconsin's good to go. Get ready for Ohio State.
Well, it's funny you say Jonathan Taylor gets hurt. I mean, you look at their backup running back, he seems just as good as Taylor. I mean, that kid would be starting in any other program. He's a good running back. It's sick. It's really sick how Paul Chryst can go out there and recruit these guys and just plug them in. Like, here's our third string running back. Well, he's going to run for 100 yards too against you. So,
right.
Take it. There you go. Read them and weep. But that's good. You got a lot of depth at running back. So if you have your Heisman hopeful go down, it's not like you miss a beat in the backfield. All right, youngster, let's get to it now. Let's see if we're going to have a lock of the week. Part of me saying I hope we don't. It's kind of like a bye week. If there's a bye week and we don't have a lock, at least we can't lose. Because we are losers when it's coming to the lock of the week. I have to admit it. It's nothing to do with my self-confidence. It's fact. We are losers. We have not won this year.
Nope.
Take it away. Let's start previewing.
Michigan State hosts Central Michigan. Michigan State's 28.5-point favorites. This is, again, one of those lines I'm just not touching, especially Michigan State to throttle someone. Michigan State's games are close. Central Michigan's bad. But I'm not touching this. Michigan State will obviously win the game. The question is, will they win by more than 4 touchdowns or not? I'm not willing to lock anything there.
Yeah, I just talked about Michigan State, how that win could turn things around. That's great. And you play a much inferior opponent in Central Michigan. But if I'm a betting man, my monopoly money is staying right under the board. You know how you tuck it in under the board there,
yep.
Kevin, and you make it real nice and neat in the piles?
Yep.
It's staying right there. You know, some people like the big lines. I don't like 28.5 points. You mentioned it. It's Michigan State. They like to pound the ball. Could they win by 29? They could. They very well could. But I'm not going to sit there like in Ohio State where, yeah, you know what, Ohio State's just explosive. They're going to put points on the board. Michigan State, they like to pound the ball. They're going to win the time of possession battle. They're going to put together 10, 12-play drives. You do that, 4 times, 5 times. Okay, there's 35 points, but if they give up 1 touchdown and they win 35-7, that's 28, not 28.5. I'm not touching it. Michigan State's going to win the game. But like I said, I'm going to leave my monopoly money under the board, Kevin.
Completely agreed. Rutgers hosts Indiana. Give me a guess, Troy, what you think this line is. Rutgers at home against Indiana. How much do you think Indiana's favored by? Indiana's favored. How much do you think they're favored by?
It's at Rutgers, right?
Correct.
Indiana at Rutgers, 6.5.
16.5 is the number. 16.5. And I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Rutgers is getting crushed by Kansas by 40. Indiana's got a capable quarterback. Indiana's got a capable running back. Indiana is not great, but they're capable. They're not trash. And Rutgers is the worst team in Power 5. Any Power 5 school. You lose to Kansas by 40, that's it. They've got quarterback issues. They've got defensive issues. They can't stop the run against anybody.
I'll say this. They got coaching issues.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. And again, we keep making light of this 4, 5, 6 years. I didn't bring this up yet on the show, Kevin. We were both athletes. If your coach is saying this, well, this is a rebuild, and it's going to take 4, 5, 6 years. If I'm on the team this year, I think I mentioned I'm nowhere in that plan.
Right.
As a player. I don't want to say he's lost his team, but you make a statement like that.
Yep.
This is a 4, 5, 6 year plan.
If you're a junior or senior, absolutely. That doesn't involve you.
Even if you're a freshman, it doesn't. Okay, maybe
well,
I'm a senior.
He's talking 3 years, 3 years down the line, 2 or 3 years down the line. That's not something you do to your upperclassmen.
So that, my thought, I'm not saying he's lost his team, but if I was a player on that team and my coach said, well, yeah, we're still in a rebuild and it's going to be a 4, 5, 6 year process.
Right.
I'd be like, what are you talking? Why did I come play for you?
Yeah. 4,
5, 6 years? Why am I on your roster? That's just me personally. I can imagine, Kevin, there's kids on that roster that are thinking the same way I am. Like, why the heck am I here?
Yeah.
I think you see Rutgers get blown out a lot this year. And I think you got a coaching problem. You mentioned it. You don't think he should be fired, but here's the thing. They keep getting blown out. He's going to get fired.
Yeah, correct.
We're not saying that he should get fired, but that comment that he made was so ludicrous. And he made it, and maybe he made it in the heat of a moment to try and make an excuse for why his team didn't win, but it's got repercussions. You got to put yourself in a player's shoes here. When my coach says 4, 5, 6 years, that does not involve me. So what am I doing here? What am I learning? What am I doing? What good is it for me to even learn right now? It's going to be all about me. It's not about this team because the coach doesn't think it is.
Right.
And I'm just throwing out my thought process. if I was playing for that coach and I heard that, I'd be like, well, screw you.
Right.
I don't. 4, 5, 6 years. I got 2 years left. I'm nowhere in this plan. Great. We're going to suck. I mean, that's the attitude I think, Kevin, that a lot of players might have. Yeah, I can't speak for them, but I think I make a legitimate point here. But anyway, my thought on this game is Indiana wins, but, man, 16.5. Whew. I know it's Rutgers, and I know Indiana's got, doing some good things, but I'm going to leave my Monopoly money under. That's a lot of points to go on the road and cover. So I think Indiana wins straight up. I'm leaving my money under the board.
Buffalo just beat them by 29 on the road. So I think Indiana can win by 17. I'm not locking anything either. This Rutgers team, you said it best. I completely agree with what you just said. Nebraska at home against Purdue. Adrian Martinez should be good for the game. Purdue, you would hope, would keep going with Blau at quarterback and just leave it at that. Purdue is favored by 3 points. I figured Purdue would be favored. I thought they'd be favored by a little more, actually. But at home, it's Nebraska. Scott Frost looking for his first win. You just got humiliated. Now you're playing a team of lesser talent. You know you can compete with Purdue. I think the game can go either way. I'll pick Purdue because I think Purdue is a little bit on a roll right now, understanding that they actually have a quarterback, which they've had this whole time. But I think Purdue has obviously taken the next step since beating that top 25 team by 20 points. That's something. They know they're decent. Nebraska doesn't know that. Nebraska doesn't know what they are right now. Scott Frost has a vision for the future. That's about it. So I think Purdue wins the game. Could it be a field goal game? Yeah, I could see that. I see the line is where it is for a reason. Not locking that one either.
Well, this is a game, Kevin. Now you have a Nebraska team. And like I said, I pat Scott Frost on the back for coming out and saying, we're just not ready. And so, well, I don't know what I'm doing today. Maybe I'm being philosophical. But if I put my feet in the shoes of those players under Scott Frost, it's all, to me, I don't want to say he did it psychologically. But if I'm a player and I hear my coach say that, and I want to play for Scott Frost,
right,
I'm going to go bust my rear.
Yep.
Because we're not ready. Well, I want to play for you, coach, and I want us to be ready. And I think Scott Frost has that kind of allure to players. Now, there's going to be some players on that roster that really don't care. They're riding it out. Scott Frost is the new sheriff in town. I was recruited from the prior regime. I'm probably going to transfer. I'm probably not part of the future. But for those kids that want to play for Scott Frost, it's not even a wake-up call. It was more or less I'll say it, I hate to say the word, a command, but you've got a coach coming out telling the world, we're not ready. Right. Now, as a player, I'm embarrassed.
Yep.
I had to have my coach go out there and admit our team is terrible.
Right.
And for me as a player, now I'm going to bust my rear, and now I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I think Nebraska comes out and has a really good showing against Purdue, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's two totally different coaches saying two totally different things. Both said their teams are terrible, but the way Scott Frost did it, he just flat out admitted, we're not good right now.
Right.
And if I'm a player under Scott Frost, coach, teach me. Let's get better.
Yep.
I think Nebraska can beat Purdue. I don't think they do, though. I think Purdue will pull this out. A 3-point line to me, honestly, Kevin, I think this is a toss-up game, and 3 points, so pretty much betting lines, that's what they're saying too. I just think you see a Nebraska team that actually comes out and plays 100%. And could we be talking about Nebraska's first win next week? We certainly could. But I think Purdue pulls this one off. But I'm not going to lock it.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. Northwestern hosting Michigan. Michigan's favored by 13.5. You don't know what you're getting with Northwestern because sometimes Northwestern looks good, sometimes Northwestern looks like crap. You don't really know what the quarterback position, what Thorson's going to look like. You don't know what the defense is going to look like either. That's been uncharacteristic of Pat Fitzgerald's teams. Typically, you have a strong defense at Northwestern. This year, it doesn't seem that way. And if you can't stop the run against Michigan, you are screwed because you're going to get run over. You're going to get play action against Shea Patterson, and Shea Patterson's actually a good quarterback, so you're done. I think Michigan wins by at least 2 touchdowns. It is a road game. Northwestern is going to want to win a Big Ten game. They may be wanting to prove themselves here. I wouldn't lock Michigan to win by at least 2 touchdowns, but I think it will happen.
I'm pulling my Monopoly money out from under the board, youngster. I'm pulling it out. I'm locking Michigan to do this. Northwestern, again, a little bit of a disappointment early on in the season. Now, again, it's early, but I thought Northwestern was one of those more solid-type programs. But I'm watching them play this year. No, I'm not saying they're bad, but they're inconsistent. And when I look at a Michigan team that now has a quarterback that they can lean on, and that defense, Michigan's at a point where they had such a dominant defense last year. We talked about it, and the defense let them down, but their offense couldn't stay on the field. They've now got an offense, Kevin, and we've seen it in the early games now with Michigan, that defense can get rest, and that defense is pretty darn good. And I know Northwestern can do some things, but the addition of Shea Patterson to Michigan's lineup, we're only seeing the tip of the ice, not even seeing the tip of the iceberg right now. I mean, this guy's still trying to find his way, and I think he's doing a pretty good job already. I do think Michigan wins by 2 touchdowns against Northwestern. I'm locking. So the old man has locked Michigan to cover the spread against Northwestern.
Fair enough. That's how we'll leave it. I'm not going to budge this time. Been burned on it in the past. I won't budge this time. The next and last game, obviously the highlighter of the week nationally. Penn State, number 9 Penn State, hosts number 4 Ohio State. This is for certainly a lot of the marbles. Penn State at home against Ohio State. What do you think the line is, Troy?
Ohio State by 1.5.
All right. Ohio State by 3.5 is the line. I am locking this game. I have been all aboard Ohio State this year. I am continuing it. I think Penn State is way too inexperienced. I think Penn State can match up talent-wise. They can. But I'll put it this way. I think Dwayne Haskins is as good of a quarterback as Trace McSorley is. They're completely different players. I think they're about as effective as one another. I think they're both complete, legitimate Heisman contenders for a reason. They both are, if you look at odds anywhere. But Ohio State's talent offensively and the proven talent they have offensively, top 7 returning receivers back, the huge O-line that they have, most of it returning, the 2 top backs from a year ago both returning, it's a mismatch to me. I think Ohio State scores it a lot easier than Penn State scores it in this game. So I think Ohio State wins by at least a touchdown here. I think they're by far the more proven offense on a consistent basis. I think Ohio State wins this game by double digits. I really do. So I'm locking it. I don't think this is going to really, truly be that close. But I really don't.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you, youngster. And the reason is because it's at Penn State.
Yeah.
It's a tough place to play.
It's going to be great.
Like Kinnick Stadium. So the thing with this game is it's going to go one of 2 ways. If Ohio State jumps out early, the game's over. Penn State's not coming back against that Ohio State defense. I mean, you keep talking, Kevin. It's funny because you keep talking about how great this offense is. When I watch Ohio State, it's the old man in me. It's the old traditionalist in me. That Ohio State defense is just phenomenal. I know they're young, and maybe the talent they've played against is making them look better than they really are.
Yeah, they're young and talented. Yeah, they're very talented.
Darn good. The thing is, like you said, they are young. And if Penn State can figure out a way to control the clock, and it's like any game. If you can control time of possession, limit the number of touches that great Ohio State offense has, you can stay in the game. And I think that with McSorley at quarterback, that they can try to do that. But like I said, this game is going one of two ways. If they get out to an early lead, the game is over because Penn State will not come back and rally to score 14 or 17 points. So they get down by 2 scores, I think the game is over, and I think it ends up being a 24-point Ohio State victory. But if Penn State can control the clock, I think actually, Kevin, and you'll probably be mad, but I think Penn State will win. If Penn State can limit the number of times that Ohio State offense goes on the field, and they've got to convert, and they've got to be very efficient doing it. Like literally, Penn State has to put together 10, 12 play drives and get touchdowns. Not field goals. They've got to get touchdowns.
Yep.
And it's going to be tough. So I either see this being an Ohio State blowout or I see this being a very low-scoring, like a 21-17 game.
Right.
Because Penn State is controlling the clock. And I believe Penn State has the ability to do it. It's going to be tough because that Ohio State defense is very good, but you also have a veteran leader in Trace McSorley. And he's been there. He's been in big games. I believe they've got a running back. It's no Barkley, but they've got a running back, and they can run the ball, and it's going to come down to the trenches. So I don't want to lock this game. To me, it's a toss-up because it's one of two things. It's what's going to happen early in the game. So my Monopoly money's got to stay under the board on this one, youngster.
Very unfortunate, Troy. Very unfortunate. But we have no go big, go home locks of the week. We both individually have locks of the week. Last week we were perfect. We were perfect on our own locks of the week. So maybe that's what we have going for us when we disagree. We just know something the other doesn't. That's all.
Maybe. Maybe.
So, that's it.
All right.
That's all I got. I'll leave the listeners with that.
Enjoyed the show today, folks. As I said earlier in the show, if you made it all the way to the end, I do want to thank The Grueling Truth for not only airing this show, Go Big or Go Home, but we have just now come to an agreement where they're going to host our archived Saturday show, Talking Sports with the Youngster and Old Man. Basically, you're on The Grueling Truth. Find us on Twitter, at TroyRobert967, at KidCunny, KIDCUNI, and follow our show handle. I can't talk today. Show handle at Youngster Old Man is our show handle. Again, hope you enjoyed the show today, everybody. Have a good day. We'll get back at you next week.